Welcome to another episode of Chax Chat. Join Chad Chilius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to the Chax Chat podcast. My name is Chad Chilius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor as well as an accessibility wizard here at Chax Training and Consulting. And this podcast is sponsored by Creative Pro Week. And Dax and I are going to be at Creative Pro Week this year. Creative Pro Week is happening June 29th to July 3rd, and it's in Nashville, Tennessee this year, as well as online if you're not able to make it to Nashville. So if you're interested, we would love to see you guys in Nashville, and just go to creativeproweek.com and you can find out more information.
And my name is Dax Castro. I am one of the other accessibility wizards here at Chax Training and Consulting. And Chad and I are both certified as accessible document specialists. And if you'd like your certification too, head on over to accessibilityassociation.org and click on certifications and get more information about becoming an accessible document specialist certified, right? Because you can get your ADS or your web accessibility specialist or your CPAC. And CPAC is the certified professional and in accessibility core competencies. And that's really the kind of the starting place of, do you understand about accessibility and how to do it? So not from a technical standpoint, but from a conceptual level. So good stuff.
Very useful stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Chad, how's your garden going?
Oh, it's cranking away, man. My garlic is now, probably 18 inches tall.
Oh, good.
My wife and I planted spinach, arugula, kale, spring onions, and snow peas. So that's
awesome.
What we have in the garden right now, and we're waiting a little bit, and then we got more stuff going on. So how about yours?
Yeah, our growing season is a lot sooner than yours.
It is.
My snow peas are 6 feet tall.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Our kale is about 2 feet tall. Well, about 1.5 feet tall, really bushy. My beets, I've got beets about the size of a tennis ball right now.
Oh, man.
Our garlic is about waist high. In fact, one of them was ready to get pulled. I'm not sure why, but it was all bent over. And so the others, I'm going to wait. It's elephant garlic. So I'm really excited to see how that all turns out. So
this weekend, Dax, I have been chasing, right? My goal here, I've been trying to make New Haven style pizza, right?
I have no idea what that is.
So if you're not familiar, and I would love comments from our audience here, right? Supposedly New Haven, Connecticut has the best pizza on earth, right?
Okay.
And my wife and I stopped there on the way home from visiting my son in New Hampshire. And I got to say, it was pretty darn good. It's very different, right? It's got like a very crispy crust.
Okay. Thin or thicker? Or?
Very thin and almost like
okay.
a crack, not quite crackery, but crispy,
Sure.
When you bite into it.
Yeah, I think they call that like a Neapolitan style pizza in Italy kind of thing.
It is, but I mean, Neapolitan can also be like a softer dough as well. And I think that, so the
I am not a pizza aficionado, but I just, yeah.
But New Haven, they cook their pizza in a coal-fired pizza oven.
Sure.
And this oven, Dax, is like 10 feet across. I mean, it is a beast of an oven, right? So I made my own pizza this weekend, and I did pretty good. I had a nice crispy crust on it. And then we had a couple dough balls left over, and I made calzones the next day. We kind of made some fixins and made some calzones. So anyway,
cool. Awesome.
Enough about our, gardens and our cooking stuff. We've got some interesting news to talk about this week, Dax, right? I think it's news that I wasn't expecting. How about you? Like I wasn't really, it wasn't on my bingo card. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. I definitely was not expecting. Someone had mentioned, hey, have you taken a look at, actually, I think it was you.
Yeah.
You said, hey, Dax, take a look at this document. Tell me what you think. And I know well enough that when you give me a document, I do a little detective work first. And the first thing I did was Control D, which for those of you who don't know, when you have a document open, you
can go to File, Document Properties, or press Control D, Command D, right?
Yes. And then you can get to the file properties. You can see what made the document. And in fact, it was made from Canva. And if you have followed us for any length of time, you know that we have always kind of had a not a great view of Canva as from an accessibility standpoint. Over the years, we've had a few conversations with them, and they've improved some of the things. Canva Slide was more improved of all the products. Canva Slide was the most improved, and it had a pretty decent level of accessibility. But Canva Documents were a whole nother thing. In fact, in the PDF accessibility Facebook group that we have, many people lament about how difficult it is to make accessible PDF documents. Yeah.
You and I have talked with the folks at Canva. This was a couple of years ago, I think, when we first started looking into it. And, we kind of expressed to them that there were a lot of missing pieces, to the puzzle. And we explained to them, but we really hadn't seen much, from them. Right? I think we had noticed like they turned on the switch on their side to make tags when a PDF was created, but it was like tag chaos, right? It was like all over the board.
Well, it was a bunch of nested things. You had a div inside a div inside a div inside a div. Yeah.
But I think I recently got an email from Canva. Probably when I created my Canva account years ago, I said, sure, go ahead, send me whatever. And there was a part of that email was talking about how they made accessibility improvements. And of course I was intrigued. And so I went online and I went to Canva and I read their documentation and I was like, wow, like it was like, okay, somebody seems to have been listening. And I want to say that Canva has made some significant improvements to their platform that allows us to make a relatively accessible PDF file when you download a PDF from a Canva project, right? And I want to give them credit. I was really impressed.
Well, we have always said that we want to champion any organization that takes accessibility serious and builds it into their workflow. And I have said over and over again, when Canva makes the accessibility improvement, we are going to shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
We are going to praise, because this isn't about Canva being bad. This is about, hey, there's a gap, a fundamental gap. Just like we call out Adobe, we call out Word, the Microsoft products, we call out everybody. Affinity, right? There's nobody that we have somehow give special treatment to. Everybody we treat equally. Right. And we took a little bit of a deeper dive. And so for those of you listening to the podcast right now, I am sharing my screen and you'll see it in the visual. So go to our YouTube channel and just type in Chak's podcast and you'll get our podcast channel. But I've got a sample document here. And I just picked a template off the website, nothing special. And it says Corporate Business Conference, best solution for growing business. And there's a cityscape in the background. Below it, it says our speakers, and it's got 3 speaker bubbles with their names. Not a traditional layout. Everything's kind of in its own little unique world. There's a list of items, a website address, and a date, right? Pretty typical one-page flyer. And what I know is that before we had the ability to view the accessibility of a document. So if that feature still exists. So if I go to File, Accessibility, and I check the box for Check Design Accessibility, this little wizard comes up. And it tells me that my typography is good, but that I have 2 color contrast issues. And it literally tells me in the little window what element it is. And I can see that it says the best solutions for growing your business has some low contrast text. And the reason it does is because it's overlapping one of the buildings in this photo. But watch what happens when I drag this box. I'll explain it to everyone who's listening. When I drag the box, I'm looking on the right-hand side, and the error for low color contrast goes away the moment that my text resizes when it's not on that the picture of the building anymore. Like, you don't have to refresh, you don't have to run the checker again. It just instantly knows you have now made the change, which I thought was fantastic.
Well, and I think it's important to understand that the text is still over the photo.
Right.
But it's not over a dark part of the photo that is preventing it from having sufficient color contrast. And
right.
I gotta say, like, I don't think I've ever seen a program do this well, right? I mean, we're used to the pack checker. We know that the pack checker can give us false positives, because it doesn't really understand the image pixel value behind the text that it's sitting on. Right. And it's just it's not great. I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. This is really pretty impressive because you get like real-time feedback as you make that adjustment.
Right. And I've got this web address that's sitting above a date in the bottom, but the web address is light gray on a white background. Obviously, it tells me I have low color contrast. If I click on it in the bubble where it's telling me in the checker where it's low color contrast, it gives me 3 different colors to choose from. What is really great is that it picked colors already from my design. Like, it didn't just make up other colors or just do a density difference in the color that it was. It literally gives me other colors that are in my content. So I can choose one of these other colors and automatically it goes away. Or I can simply drag it down into the purple area, the purple reverse underneath the date, and it goes away as well. And now in the color contrast category, it says no issues remaining. And then I can go back to view all issues and it says typography is good, color contrast is good. And then it says 9 alternate text issues. And what's nice is I have all of the little boxes for all the images right here. And I can just click no alt text and that marks it as decorative. All these headshots and the background photos, none of this needs to have alternate text. But if for some reason I did want alternate text on something, the nice thing is I can just click add alternate text to that object. I don't have to go find it on the page. I can just hit it from the dropdown. And this is actually something we've been asking Adobe for a long time. Give us the ability in the links panel to add alt text in that kind of single area. Made to Tag allows for this. Made to Tag has a feature called view alt text or preview alt text, and then it gives you this kind of pop-up box. So well done. Well done.
Yeah. And then it also gives you the ability to associate the appropriate tag to the particular elements, right? So if you go to that file menu and go to accessibility again, there's an option called edit text semantics. And if you choose that, it brings up a list that kind of looks like a layers panel, but it's really just a list of all the objects in your document. And you can click to the right of it, the little three dot menu, and say, associate this with heading 1 or heading 2 or heading 3. And it's really very well thought out, I think,
Yeah, no, it's great that you can do it. There is a couple of drawbacks. One is that right now my layout says corporate business conference, and the corporate is smaller, the business is really big, and conference is smaller again. And they are separate text boxes because in Canva, there is no ability to set the kerning, the leading, the space between the lines. So you can't make this text as tight as you might want it. So the solution is you build each text in each own individual box and then align them the way you want. However, this makes accessibility a little bit harder because you'd want it to say corporate business conference heading level 1, but unfortunately you have 3 boxes that the only thing you can do is mark each one of them as a heading level 1. And then you're going to hear heading level 1 corporate, heading level 1 business, heading level 1 conference. And that's not ideal, but it's at least you can set some semantic, the nature of the structure in the document pretty easily. So that's great, right?
It really is.
The other thing that we discovered is that in the accessibility menu, I can choose navigate by layer order. And I thought, oh, great. This is where we can set the reading order or the layers in the document so that when we export to PDF, I can make a non-traditional reading order read the right way. And when we check the box, you're not quite done. You're supposed to be able to go to, if we click on any one of these objects and choose position, you'll see the position is listed in the layers panel, right? And so in the layers panel, I can drag elements up and down. We thought this is where you could set the reading order for the content. We tried bottom up, we tried top down, and Chad, their documentation says that you should be able to do it bottom up. Is that correct?
That's what I had read, is that like similar, well, yeah, I mean, this is where it gets a little convoluted, right? But I mean, in InDesign to set the reading order, you do bottom up. And
right.
So I feel like they kind of took a page out of that or whatever, but it, as you and I discovered, it doesn't seem to work, right?
No, it takes the order of the objects on the page, top down, left to right, just like InDesign would if you didn't check the layer order box. So, or use the articles panel. So while it seems like you could do it via the layers panel, it doesn't actually work. But overall, this is a huge improvement to what we've had in the past. And then finally, I want to point out one other small thing. So here in the bottom, we have on this page, I've got a basic paragraph and it has a list. And lists are always one of those unique items, lists and tables, which we haven't even looked at tables and how they affect. Maybe we'll do a future podcast on some tables and some other stuff.
Yeah.
But the list was great in that when you export to PDF, you get a formal list, but an L with LIs. But what you don't get is the LBL, the L, you just get an L body for the text, and they've artifacted the bullet, which I thought at first was great because you don't really want to hear right pointing pointer or right arrow or fleur-de-lis or whatever
even
it
bullet.
is.
Or even bullet, right? Yeah.
Yeah. However, there is a bug or a feature within NVDA and JAWS that we know because of Word and Word's inability to separate the LBL with the L body, depending upon how you export, that JAWS and NVDA will not let the user pause in a list when there's no LBL. What happens is as soon as you get in the list, JAWS or NVDA will just start reading all the way down through the list. And you're like, oh, we'll just use the arrow key and move up or down and it'll pause it. Nope, it doesn't. It just keeps wanting to read from that point forward. So without the LBL, you're kind of buzzing through that list with no breaks, which isn't ideal, but at least the list gets read as list 5 items, and then it actually does kind of read it item by item. You just have no ability to pause.
Right.
Yeah. So overall, a solid B+ effort. I think in some instances, the automatic detection of conditions on the page, I think is outstanding. I think they've done a fantastic job there. With everything, progress over perfection. Kudos to Canva for moving the needle forward in getting their content more accessible. We hope to see more stuff in the future. And we'd love, Canva, if you're listening, we'd love to talk with you some more about some of the gaps and help you through it. We want you to be accessible and we want you to succeed in this way. So good stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, the purpose of the reason why Dax and I wanted to talk about this today is more of like a first look, right, of Canva, right? As Dax pointed out earlier, like we want to do a deep dive on a couple of other things like tables, some other elements and things like that. But like, again, like we want companies to succeed. I mean, Dax and my goal is to make as much content accessible as we can to help people all over the world, right? And so when a company succeeds, everybody benefits. Everybody succeeds, right? And so, that's really where we were coming from today. I was, when I sent you that file, Dax, and I knew you were gonna do a deep dive, and I'm glad you did. But I was like, I created a PDF. I'm like, holy moly, like this is usable, right?
Yes.
And the other thing I noticed, Dax, is I did not see those Form X objects.
Yeah.
In the output, like we were seeing in previous iterations of Canva. So I thought that was a big benefit too, right? Because that was causing us some problems in the past,
Well, their images are always going to come out as a Form X because they're going to have a treatment. There's a crop, or, for those of you who don't know, Form X is kind of the semantic nomenclature for this isn't just an image. It's not in its raw state. It's been modified somehow. Size, crop, treatment.
It's like a transformation of some sort, right? You know. And we were running into cases where the Form X object was getting in our way.
Yeah.
And so I was like pulling things out of the Form X object. And like when I would pull a text object out of there, the text would flip upside down, it would mirror, and it would get huge.
Yeah, because all those transformations were wrong. They were what was controlling all of it. Yeah. So great job in the way that they have gone through and made the content more accessible. I just hope that they keep moving forward. I think it's great. And I think the competition, as people rise, other people rise. It pushes you to do better. And we hope that as more options become available to make content accessible, companies like Adobe start paying more attention to accessibility as a feature, because it's been a bit since there's been an accessibility improvement. And to be honest, there's just a lot of stuff that just doesn't work inside in design and honestly in Acrobat as well. And we hope that as other companies become more focused on accessibility, Adobe starts to take another look at them. And we love Adobe. I absolutely want everyone to succeed. And in fact, I'm looking forward to our pre-conference lab this year at Adobe Max, Chad.
Yeah.
That is going to be outstanding. So a full day of Chad and Dax, if you can handle it, bravery, kudos to you. But we're going to have some really cool stuff. And I might even have some 3D printed goodies for attendees for the class. We'll see. Right. I've been going ADHD hyper laser focused on my laser printer as of late, and my room is full of all these little printed pieces of different things. This was a USB. One of my USB plugs broke. I stepped on it, and so I'm like, I need this USB because it controls my camera. And so I made a little clippy piece that actually goes right on. And so I can just clamshell it right over the USB, and now it protects the circuit board that plugs into the camera. So just so many cool things. So anyway, all that to say, Adobe Max, sign up for the pre-conference lab, and then accessing higher ground, Chad, farther later on in the year. Maybe your budget isn't so big that you can attend Adobe Max, but accessing higher ground happens in Denver, right?
Yeah, accessing higher ground is Denver, I think in November.
Yeah.
And Adobe Max is in Miami this year. October?
I want to say it's November as well. Adobe Max 2026 is going to be in November 10th through the 12th. Ooh, when is accessing higher ground?
I don't.
Accessing higher ground 2026. the following week.
Boy,
16th to the 20th.
So we're gonna,
back-to-back
conferences.
Man,
we're gonna be
maybe
like,
we'll just fly straight from
I'll tell you what,
Florida to Denver.
It might be.
Yeah.
That's going to be a little crazy, right? So
yeah,
we may end up flying. You're going to fly from Sacramento to Miami. I'm going to fly from Philly to Miami, and then we may end up going from Miami right to Denver. And yeah,
that may make a lot more sense than all the way back to Sacramento and then back to Denver.
Of course.
And you, obviously. So anyway, all that to say, if you want some alone time with Chad and I in a group setting, in a room full of other people who are as obsessed about accessibility as we are, come join one of those two conferences.
Yeah.
The pre-conferences are always so much more informative because it's so hard to jam as much as we want to teach you into 45 minutes or even 90 minutes is just, you just start to scratch the surface. And if you've ever been at a conference going, man, I wish this was more, I wish we had longer, this is your opportunity. Adobe Max is, and honestly, the sessions are going to be very similar to each other. So if you don't have the budget for Adobe Max, you will have the budget for accessing higher ground.
Yeah, I mean, Adobe Max is going to be a little bit more InDesign heavy, right?
Yes.
Where accessing higher ground is probably going to be focused a little bit more on the PDF side of things,
Agreed.
Things like that. But principles are going to be very similar, right? We're going to be covering a lot of this similar content.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Canva, well done.
Good job,
Gauntlet
Canva.
is thrown down. You got a little bit more to go. Fix the reading order and the bullets, right? Give me an LBL with the bullet in it, but I don't know. Maybe the answer to that is more on the backs of NVDA and JAWS to fix the way that their screen reader listens to those bullets, because it's completely semantic to have a bulleted list with no LBL. Why does the screen reader push through it? It should stop.
And I mean, that is in the PDF UA standard, right? You can either have the label or you cannot have the label. So it's just that I think all of the screen readers, they're using that label as the anchor. They're using that label as like this is the beginning of a list item. Yep. And when that's missing, it just plows through them. You know what I mean? It goes through them all.
Well, and I think the bottom line here is that this is one of the reasons why PDFs get a bad rap. This is exactly why people say, well, PDFs are garbage. Oh, no. That is not it at all. The reason that you're having a bad user experience is because the screen reader and the code that's being generated by the source file aren't in alignment, and PDF is just the vehicle in between.
Well, and the other thing I'll add to that is that many PDFs are created without any intent whatsoever. Right. And so what can you expect from that? Right. Like if there was never any intent during the creation of the file, how can you expect it to be a good experience? I mean, it's honestly no different than having like some program spit out some HTML code for you that looks good on screen, but functionally is a horrible experience because it wasn't coded correctly, right?
Yeah.
So
no worries. Well, good stuff. Definitely good stuff. All right, guys. Relatively short episode this week. Really, really appreciate you.
Yes.
Stay tuned for more stuff. And if you're not following Chad or I on LinkedIn, I just want to give you a plug out to our drop-in classes, right? Maybe you don't have the budget to go to Adobe Max. Maybe you don't have the budget to go to Accessing Higher Ground. But I promise you, our classes that are online, they're 3-hour drop-in live classes with handouts and sometimes plugins that really focus on all the basics of accessibility. And they're a great way. They're under $300, under $100 an hour. I challenge you to find that anywhere where you can just drop in and get expert resources at that level. So,
and in almost every class, we try to leave time at the end for Q&A, so you can ask your own questions, and we always encourage it. We always tell you, if you've got the question, I promise you somebody else does too, right? And we love having questions, pertaining to the type of work that you do, and we love to help you and answer those questions. So, check out some of our drop-in classes at chaxtc.com.
Right. And just click on the take a class button. It's a big blue button right there in the middle, and you'll see the next classes that are coming up. I don't know when this podcast will be released, but we've got tech classes on alt text, on testing your documents with Adobe Acrobat. We've even got classes on Common Look.
Common Look, Made to Tag, Access PDF. If you're using third-party tools, right, we cover those. I mean, InDesign, lots of good stuff.
Tables, designing with accessibility in mind, all sorts of stuff. So lots of really great classes. So head on over to chaxtc.com. And if you're looking to if you already have your Accessible Document Specialist certification or your CPAC, our classes qualify for 3 IAAP credits. They fall under continual enrichment, your training that you have to keep up on. So just know that those do qualify, which is a great benefit, a great selling point to your boss, to why you should be attending these classes.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in today. We really appreciate you. Make sure, like I said, Dax and I are going to be at Creative Pro Week, end of June. So check that out. We're going to be at Adobe Max in November. We're going to be at Accessing Higher Ground in November. So we would absolutely love to see you at one of those events. But if not, reach out to us on LinkedIn and we'd love to communicate with you, whatever your method of choice is. My name is Chad Chilius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where every other week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.